Okay, so instead of playing Layers of Fear, I'm going to be reading some scary stories because because why the fuck not? Now hang on a moment. If I can do something quickly. Okay. Okay. Let me do something so I can see the chat while I'm reading this as well. And my cat is here to keep me company too. Pretty sure you can probably hear him in the background. Okay. First story. It's called The Cell Phone. A couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with the text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Picked her phone back up from his hand Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes, such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken, until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. Huh. Well, that was an interesting one. Definitely an interesting one. I wouldn't really call it all that scary. Kind of creepy. Hey, I'm not saying anything. I could be Corpse Bride, I could not be. Okay. The second story is called Ghost Bro. My house was built in 1904. It is a single-family home. Wood frame is sitting on a concrete building foundation. I have been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and... Oh, that bothers me. That should be siblings and I, but it says siblings and me. Grammar Nazi police here. That is incorrect. Anyway, back to the story. Of all the weird things that my siblings and I have seen or heard in this house, this one event is my favorite. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friend had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock, alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice into the early evening, and they would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were getting shorter. They had just finished a long session when Why can't I talk today? They had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house. Oh god, the grammar. To someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement, but the tricky part was that they needed to walk all the way to the back of the basement, up the back stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall into the living room, and out into the front porch. That is kind of confusing, actually. It also could be just because I'm tired, but yeah. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on a speaker in the basement. Wait. Okay, I think if I'm... Wait, why would... You're eating while you're practicing? I guess that makes sense. Okay. Anyway, he made the decision to go back. Now, the basement is not clean, with full sight lines. There had been partitions made, and the boiler and main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So, after my brother walks back, he is about to retrieve his food container, when out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It is a shadowy, yes, a very shadowy figure. It is a shadowy figure, right at his peripheral vision, really? Right in his peripheral vision. This feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over my brother. We had been taught that if you are in the presence of a spirit or ghost, and you felt a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer or to cuss at it. Why would you swear at a ghost or spirit? That just makes no sense, because wouldn't that just make the spirit angry? I thought this was supposed to be me reading scary stories, but this is just me complaining about how bad the story is. Okay. Oh god. Give me a moment. Okay. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it, hey, fuck you. I don't have time for this shit. I'm sorry. That's just... What? Why? Oh my god. Okay. My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing doors and turning off lights as he was walking out. The last light switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last switch in the living room... As he flicked the last switch, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. Okay, you gotta stop calling me Corpse Bride because I'm definitely not him. I haven't even heard of him until you linked his channel. I'm gonna be completely honest. But anyway. Where was I? As he flicked the last switch, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. Yeah, because that makes sense. As did the rest of the house. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him, still holding his food. Hey, Lady Hawk. Sorry, I'm not playing the game right now. I have finished it before, but I'm not playing it right now. I'm just reading scary stories because, yeah. My voice is not creepy, it's just deep. Yeah, sorry. If you catch me, maybe tomorrow I'll be streaming it, maybe. But yeah. Where was I? A good creepy, yeah. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him. Still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house was... Ooh, I just burped. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard but no rear garage. He closed the gap between himself and his friend-laden truck. He kind of smiled and thought things over in his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. Spooking out? Does that even make any sense? Like, shouldn't it be for getting spooked out or something like that? Anyway, he climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting on his seatbelt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house, when one of his friends asked, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" I'm spooking up, man. My brother answered, "What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" Next question they asked, "So then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" Yeah, that's not that creepy. I actually have a creepier story that actually did happen to me, but I can get into that later, unless you want to hear it now. Ugh. Hey, cat, what are you doing? Cat. Hey. Cat. Cat. Okay, well, here goes my scary story. Well, not really scary, but anyway. So, I believe I was in first or second grade. This was before I moved out of this house, so I'm not living at that house anymore. But when I was living there, the whole back wall was basically just windows. It was just a glass wall, basically. So I could see into the back porch and into our backyard. And I was watching cartoons, and this was in the middle of the winter, and it just snowed the night before. And I looked out because sometimes I would see a bird that was pretty, like a cardinal. But instead of seeing a bird, I saw two men standing in the back of my yard. And they were talking to each other. And they walked out of the backyard into the alleyway that's right behind there. So, being the curious, naive little child that I was, I decided that I was going to go chase after them. Well, not really chase after them, but follow their whatever. So I grabbed my coat, grabbed my boots, went outside, followed their footsteps, and about halfway into the alleyway, the footsteps just stop. No sign of a car. They couldn't have climbed because it was dead center in the middle of the road. They couldn't have just climbed over something or gotten into a car and driven away. So, yeah, that's my story. That went a lot quicker than... I don't know, now that I look back on it, it wasn't all that scary. It wasn't like... They didn't have a bad feeling to them at all. It was just... Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I was also just a kid who was curious as to why people were in my backyard, but eh. Yeah, more odd, I would say. Okay, well, on to the next story, I guess. This one is called The Rocking Horse, and this one's actually quite short. One night, when I was maybe 10 to 12, I had trouble falling asleep. Hey, I have that problem. My bedroom was the entire top floor of the house, with my bed and such being on the left side and storage closets and a play area being on the right. Okay, that would be kind of scary to me, just having that huge room be where I slept. I don't know, but I'm also kind of claustrophobic. But, yeah. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room and see a rocking horse behind begin to rock. It was just sitting just outside one of the storage closet doors. It proceeded to rock its way halfway across the room and stopped dead under the ceiling light. At this point, I was freaking out and just buried my head under my blanket and never peeked out again until morning. And I just got chills. It was all confirmed to not be a dream, as the rocking horse was still in the middle of my room when I woke up. Furthermore, I got a stern reprimand from my parents for being up out of bed playing with my toys well past my bedtime. Their bedroom was directly below the storage closet play area and had heard the creaking of the rocking horse shuffling across the room. Yeah, I just got chills. Oh god, if that actually happened to me, I'd be freaking out. I would want to move out of that house instantly. Oh god, that picture is creepy. Okay, no, I'm not gonna read that one yet. That startled me. It's not even a picture, it's more just a... Okay. Never mind. I'm not even gonna ask a question because then people... Or... I don't even know. It would... Okay. This next story is called The Following. My older sister has a ghost that's followed her around for years. I lived with her once for about 3 months, and so much weird stuff happened in that time. All my sister would say to me when I mentioned it was that her ghost didn't like me being there. Yeah, I can see that. Things like going to bed with everything locked up and switched off and waking up in the morning with the back door open, lights on, and the kettle switched on. One night, my sister and I were getting ready to go out, and I'd ask her to borrow Yeah, and I'd asked to borrow her liquid foundation. I used it and put it back where she kept her makeup. 10 minutes later, she's asking me for it, and it was nowhere to be seen. She accused me of taking it and made me buy her a new one and refused to listen to my side of the story. About a year or so later, when she was packing to move to a new house, she found the makeup in a shoebox with some old letters. The shoebox was in a zipped-up suitcase that was underneath her bed. But probably the most scared I ever felt was one afternoon when I was the only one in the house, but it never happened as 4 other people lived there. I'd arrived home from work and headed straight to the bathroom. All the doors, windows, etc. were closed. I was standing in the bathroom and started squeezing a pimple on my chin when a female voice in the hall said, "Stop picking your zits." That would actually freak me out. It was loud enough and sounded real enough at the time I thought it was my sister, so I laughed, told her to fuck off, and asked what she was doing for dinner. No answer. I stuck my head out into the hall, no one there. I searched the house top to bottom and there was no one home. I sat out on the front porch until someone else got home because I didn't want to be in there alone. I would do the same. I would do the same. Still in love with the music of Layers of Fear, though. Just in this menu. There's one that's here that is a thing where you have to click. I don't feel like doing that. This one is called... Right? I love the music in this game. The artist, I guess? Yeah, the artist did a really good job on it. Okay. The Whispers. This is a story I do not often tell. Okay, you do not often tell it, but you put it on the internet. Because that makes sense, right? I promise sincerely that this has scarred me for life, and although I have looked into psychological explanations for what I heard and natural explanations for what occurred, they remain unsatisfactory. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I think every kid was, or most kids at least. I swore to my mother I heard voices in it. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. She figured they were just bumps in the night, and typical kids' nightmare material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that they sounded different from one another the way people's voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside of her bedroom door for my late night tinkles. I should add at this point that when walking out of the hall to go to the bathroom, you looked directly down the stairs that would lead you into my living room on the first floor, as my mom's bedroom was on the second floor. On one such night, around Christmas, I awoke and felt the need to relieve myself. I walked out from the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look!" And to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid, and it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what that light was. It was Santa! Yeah, because that's exactly what a kid would think if they saw a glowing light with nothing else there. How else could he get in picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness in my living room? That's when I heard him, a very strong masculine voice, different from the first. Not at all like my father's. Not to say he isn't masculine, it was just distinctly different. It said, "Stop, right now, go back up those stairs." I listened, turned around, and What happened next, I am not sure I would believe if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we awoke the next morning, the poinsettia, I haven't heard that word in a long time. The poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs, some broken from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. A dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been the victims to a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broken in. There did not seem to be any reason this had happened. And then I saw it, and I kept quiet about it because I was so afraid that I could not force words out of my mouth. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were 3 indentations where the finish on the wood had been worn, almost as if in a forceful grip. Something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That was what the bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night. If it was anything at all, but I can tell you that the reality was that something had physically acted upon 2 things in my house near the bottom of that stairwell. After this, I had never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank the man, masculine energy, that had stopped me from going down those stairs. This happened when I was 7. I am 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I am still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells. Dude, I have fucking chills. That was actually musty. But the grandfather. My grandfather told me this story about how one time he was sitting in a chair in front of the house when he heard his wife repeatedly calling him from inside the house. The thing is, my grandmother passed away a few years before that, but he told me that the voice was so pressing that he actually got up to look inside the house. As soon as he got inside, he heard a loud crash behind him and turned around to see that the chair he had been sitting in moments ago had been crushed by the cast iron gutter that fell on it. If he hadn't come inside the house, he would have probably been seriously injured. I don't know if it's paranormal or not, but every time I think about it, it sends chills down my spine. Why would it send? Because that means that the grandmother's spirit was watching over the grandfather. So wouldn't that actually be really sweet? I don't know though. That's just how I see it. Did you fall asleep yet, Ace? Okay, next one. The Crib Shadow. It seems like a lot of these scary stories, not the ones that I just read, but a lot that I've seen, happen when they're babysitting someone. I was babysitting my niece once while I was staying at my brother's place, and they had the baby camera set up so I could see her on the little TV it came with. I was studying and started dozing off when I heard some whispering and realized it was coming from the monitor. I initially thought it was some feedback or something, but when I looked at the TV, there was a dark shadow near my niece's crib. I have never been more terrified in my life, but the shadow was clearly there where it had not been before. I ran to my niece's room and looked around and saw nothing. I took her the hell out of there. I went back to the TV and the shadow was clearly gone. I told my brother what happened, and he pulled me aside and told me not to mention it to my sister-in-law because she'll freak out, but that he had seen the same thing several times in a row now, with the same whispering. I stayed in that house for about 4 more years, and when my niece was just learning to talk, she would tell her mom about her special friend. To this day, it scares the shit out of me. When they moved out, my brother told me my niece had become inconsolably sad because she would miss her friend. Her mom would tell her she could bring him along, but all she would say was that he couldn't leave the house. We have never to this day told her about that damn shadow, and she apparently never saw it. Okay. Yeah. I have nothing to say about that. That wasn't that scary. It was basically just a stereotypical scary story. Oh, there's a shadow that's not actually there. Kid says it's my friend, and now I don't see the friend anymore. I've heard that story a million times. The shadow. I didn't know that's what it was called until much later. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it had been a speakeasy, a brothel, and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I was alone in the house. The way the place was built was incredibly haphazard. There was a bedroom and living room on one side, then a bathroom with 2 entrances. On the other side of the bathroom was a hallway that had windows on one side and 2 bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall into the bathroom, then through the bathroom and down the other hall. I was standing at my dresser and just noticed movement out of the corner of my eye and looked down there. There was, and honest to God, this gives me goosebumps just typing it, 17 years later, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall, and it was only vaguely humanoid. It looked like black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribbles moved like electricity arcing. That's the best way to describe it. There was no sound that I could remember. I distinctly remember when I saw it, I wasn't afraid, just like, what the fuck? Then it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me, I guess. Then I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, nothing. I was just frozen, because it just fucking came at me. It rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what it intended, but as soon as I entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed shut on it. I screamed. I yelled for my wife. She wasn't home. I went the fuck outside, into the daylight, and didn't go back in until she got home about 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe I saw something supernatural, but I know I saw something. I don't know what it was. Goosebumps again. But again, it was also a very stereotypical one again. It wasn't like any other that I've heard, though. He didn't explain what he meant by I didn't know that it was called that then. But, whatever. The princess. How did the prince... Okay. I'm just saying, the princess... Like, both of those words, the and princess, when put together, are capitalized, so yeah. And excuse me. Hang on a moment, I'm gonna grab a drink of water because I am thirsty and my throat is dry from all this talking. I'm not used to talking this much, so yeah. Alright. Let's get back to the stories. How did the princess take control of our message board, if only for a few seconds? It didn't make any sense. Our message board wasn't a video game. Our message board pulled all its information from the internet. The princess was already inhabiting the game at the same time. All the rules we thought we knew, all the things we thought kept us safe had failed us. Could she have done this at any time? Could she do it again? Were there any real limits to what she was capable of? We looked around all the data we collected. We tried to find some common thread we'd been missing. There must have been some way we could have known. There had to be more answers than we were seeing, and there were. We finally realized the truth. It was so obvious. The princess had been in our message board the whole time. She was on every page. She was on every forum list. She'd been staring at us, watching us for years, and we never even saw it. She was the banner at the top of the forum. She was every screenshot we'd posted, every video we've uploaded, and every piece of fan art we'd drawn. Shit, there's stuff on my screen. Sorry. Every image of her is her. Every image of her, when observed, gives her power. She's not a ghost. She's not a computer virus. She's an idea. Living fiction. And that's in quotation marks. She lives off our observation and thoughts of her. When we all watched that stream, banded together and gave her all of our attention all at once, we made her more powerful than she'd ever been before. We made her strong enough to manifest through the images we'd posted on our message board and speak directly to us. We took down all the images. From what we speculate, is enough to simply never look at them again. But we deleted them all just to be certain. However, it may already be too late for us. I've been losing contact with other members of the society. I can't to them, or if they've simply gone into hiding. But at this point, only a fool would consider the worst case scenario. I'm not completely heartless. I know she's fighting for her survival now. For her, being forgotten is death. She does what she does in the hopes of keeping her memory alive. To that end, perhaps my telling her story to the world is a small act of mercy. Maybe the thoughts I've lent her will ease her pain somewhat. I don't know, but either way, that isn't why I wrote all this. What I've told you could put you in great danger, but it could also save your life. You're a target now, and in the months and years ahead, she may well come for you. But I've also given you all the knowledge you need to keep yourself safe. Do not try to fight her. Do not try to talk to her. Do not try to outsmart or trap her. Don't investigate. Don't try to understand. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to be her savior. It is my sincere hope that I've given you all the answers you want, so you won't make our mistake and try to investigate further. There is one and only one thing you need to do to be safe. If you see her, turn off the game. What game? Like, the only princess I know from a game is Clash Royale. Or, I don't even know if it's in Clash of Clans, but still. I don't know. I have a feeling Ace fell asleep, but wait. So this one thing says it's called the photograph, and my friend took this picture of her cousin in their new house. He says it was just the two of them there, but that's not what it looks like. Oh. Oh. Okay. So basically it's this guy and he's sitting on a couch in the middle of a living room, and there's a ladder in the background, and behind the ladder there's this woman. But if there are only two of them, who's that woman? And it's only the head you can see. There's no body of it, any sort. It's just below that is just black. Ooh, that's creepy. Oh, this one's long. Huh. I mean, it's also the last. Jeez, I've actually been reading these stories for 43 minutes now. That's insane. The satellite images. A friend of mine showed me how to use Google Maps. I'm sure you've seen it. Yeah, I think everyone has seen it. It lets you use satellite images to look at locations all over the world. A few years ago, I was in a car accident. Since then, I really don't leave the house that often. It's difficult, and the idea of seeing a car drive by me makes me feel lightheaded. I was fascinated by the fact that I could see all over the world, almost like being there. I could virtually walk down the streets, and it almost felt like I was really there. I became instantly hooked. It gave me a real eye on the world. I'd go to almost any major city, and I did. I'd seen streets in China, Japan, Germany, and England, so many places. I'd even gone to tourist attractions like the Great Barrier Reef and Dracula's Castle. My favorite was to go to random places in major cities and see how many people and animals I could find. The faces of the people were always blurred to protect their privacy, but it was still enjoyable to see them out there, enjoying their life, walking like it was no big deal. She must have good taste, I laughed. I zoomed in closer and noticed the gray bag she carried on a gray and purple shoulder strap. She was walking in a relaxed manner, one hand trailing the wall beside her. I bet if I could have seen her face, I would see that she was smiling. I began to feel a little sad. I let my hands fall onto the arms of my wheelchair and looked at her for a minute more. I wished that I could be there, walking so carefree with her. That wouldn't happen, though, until I died. I was stuck in this chair. I sighed and zoomed out of Tokyo. Enough of this for tonight. I turned off the computer and went to bed. I have a feeling something's going to happen with that lady that he saw, but I don't know. I got up early and decided to look around Paris. Paris was always fun. I liked the look of the city, with all of the old, beautiful buildings and so many people to watch. I randomly zoomed to an area and saw a street, lined with old brick buildings, a few small shops, and an old tan brick church. Ahead was an intersection, and dozens of people walked by. A balding businessman walked quickly past, looking back at an old woman, hair covered with a scarf, carrying a large purse. A curvy woman in black pants that were too tight stared into a store window, and two women led a group of small children around a corner. I spun the view around a few more times, and then saw something peculiar. Sitting on the bench at the bus stop were two people. One of them was a young woman with her feet stuck in front of her in a relaxed manner. She was wearing a pair of red sneakers, like my own. I was stunned as I noticed the black pants, white t-shirt, and black hooded jacket. Her dark brown hair was tied loosely behind her head. The gray bag sat on the bench beside her, the shoulder strap hooked over her shoulder. This is crazy, I thought. It can't possibly be the same woman. This is a different country, different continent even. How could it be her? This was stupid. It wasn't as if these were live photographs. They were taken ahead of time and then stored. It sounded like she was in two places at once. A traveler. Besides, without seeing her face, it was impossible to tell it was the same person. Brown hair was probably the most common hair and color in the world. Those red sneakers were something I purchased online. I'm sure a million other people did too. I shook my head and went to fix some lunch. When I get back online, I decided to look at Berlin. I picked a random street, as usual. It looked pretty empty. There were brick buildings lining the street, looking more like factories than anything else. There were also empty lots, full of long grass and piled gravel. There wasn't much to see at all, really. There was a line of motorbikes and a car with 2 German flags sticking up from it. After more searching, I found one kid. He looked like he was dressed for school, a jacket thrown over his bag. He was intently looking at some kind of mobile device. I was disappointed. I started to leave, but then I caught something out of the corner of my eye. I turned the view, and there they were, those damned red sneakers. She was standing on the street corner, next to some kind of signpost. She had a hand on the post, looking down the street, as if waiting to cross the street. I stared in shock. How could she be there, too? Even if she was traveling, there's no way I would find her every time. Even finding her in Paris would have been one heck of a coincidence, but this was crazy. Was this some kind of joke? Had Google decided to play a prank on its user that used their product so much? It would have been a great joke. I did a quick search looking for a note about a woman that showed up like Waldo. There was nothing. I looked through articles and strange things you can see in Google Maps, but none of them mentioned that travels the world with you. This was crazy. Had my self-imposed isolation driven me mad? Had I become so lonely that I created a hallucination for myself? Leaving the Berlin image on my screen, I sent a text message to a friend asking him to look at the locations. I asked him if he saw the same woman, then I waited, hands sweating, heart thumping in my chest. I jumped when my phone beeped with a return text message 10 minutes later. The text read, "I see the lady you're talking about in Berlin. I didn't see her in Paris or Tokyo. Is this some kind of game or what? Are you okay?" I didn't respond, instead returning to the locations in Tokyo and Paris. There she was. She was there, but it was different. She no longer sat on the bus stop bench in Paris. She was standing in front of it, looking for something in her bag. In Tokyo, she was blocks away, squatting down to pet that calico cat. I shivered. Who was she? What was happening? I switched the map to Brussels. It was another city street. It was lined with old-looking buildings with shops on the ground level, and what I guessed was apartments above. I quickly scanned the streets. They were empty, other than a stocky woman in a bright blue sweater. I did a second sweep. She wasn't there. I sighed in relief. I couldn't believe I was getting so worked up about this. It was nothing but a coincidence. I stopped. My eyes frozen on the screen. There was a building at the point of a fork in the road, white, with a black ironwork framed balcony jutting from the second floor. I hadn't seen her, as I had been looking at the sidewalks. There she stood, standing on the balcony, her head tilted in the direction of the camera, almost like she was coyly looking toward me. My breath caught in my throat. I switched to Sydney. She was leaning against the wall inside the doorway of the bright blue Carrick's Pharmacy building. London showed her getting ready to step onto a red double-decker bus. Her head turned to look over her shoulder. She was everywhere I looked. She stood on a brick sidewalk on a bridge to Venice. She walked across a yellow-barred crossroad in Zurich and in Hong Kong, and she stood between a Wing Lung Bank and a McDonald's, adjusting the strap on her bag. In each picture, she came closer and closer to looking directly at me with her blurred-out face. My heart felt like a terrified bird, slamming around inside my chest. I couldn't catch my breath. I wasn't sure what to do. I couldn't call the police. Should I send screenshots to Google? I clenched my fists tightly and closed my eyes. Who was she? Was she following me? Was I following her? I wish I could see the expression on her face, knowing what she saw when she looked back at me. I wanted to get out of the chair and run. Why is it that the only thing that made me feel free again was the thing that made me feel even more trapped? I had to know. I typed in the name... Oh god, why would you do that? I typed in the name of my town and zoomed into a random street. It was a couple of miles from my house. The gates to the city park were shown in the clarity of daylight, despite it being night here. There she was. There she was. She was only a few miles from my house, standing under the ironwork arch that stated the name of the park. She looked directly at the camera, directly at me. I felt like I might throw up. She was near me, and she was watching me. She was coming for me. What did she want? I typed in the name of the apartment complex where I lived. I could see the outside of the building. The parking lot was full of cars, and there were a few blurred out children on the playground. I searched everywhere for her. She wasn't in the parking lot or on the sidewalks, not hiding between the buildings or standing in the playground. I even scanned each of the cars behind the bushes and every of the blurred windows. She wasn't there. I curled tightly around myself and lay my head down on the desk. This place was safe. I didn't leave the apartment anyway. I would never use Google Maps again. I would never see her again. She could stay at the park for all I cared. I smiled to myself and was surprised to find a tear slipping down my face. I'm actually... Give me a moment, sorry. I'm safe, I said to myself in a whisper. It felt good to hear it out loud. I'm safe. As I said it, there was a knock at the door. A chill ran down my spine. I had a camera hooked up to my computer that showed who was at the front door, which made it easy. I slowly reached for the control to show myself who was outside, but my hand... As I touched the control, I realized my mistake. The last of Google's images that I had seen had only shown the outside of the building, just the outside. I looked at the screen and saw a woman in a white t-shirt, black pants, black hooded jacket, and carrying a gray bag with a purple and gray striped shoulder strap. Of course, there were those red sneakers. She looked directly at the camera, her face still a complete blur. As I tried to stifle a scream, she raised a hand and knocked loudly on my front door. Well, that happened. And I think that's where I'm going to cut this stream. So, yeah. Thanks to those who came out, and I hope you enjoyed this little horror thing that I did. Yeah.